Algebra 1 Fall Semester Exam Review. So the first unit is solving equations and inequalities. So we've got 5 general steps. So the first general step is to distribute any numbers outside the parentheses. The second step is to combine like terms if you can. Then we need to move all of our variables to one side of the equation, move all of your constants to the other side, and then divide by the coefficient to get the variable isolated. The important thing to remember when you divide is if you're having an inequality, whenever you divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality symbol. And that only goes for inequalities, and it only happens when you divide by a negative. So we're going to do some of these together, and you're going to do some of these on your own. There's an accompanying assignment in Schoology for you to do the ones that we skip on your own. So the first one we're going to do together is number 1. So what value of n will make this equation true? Well, that just simply means to solve the equation for the variable. And so the first step, step 1, is to distribute. So we're going to take the 2 and multiply it inside the parentheses. So 2 times 3n makes 6n. 2 times -1 makes -2. On the other side, there's another 2 on the outside, so we're going to distribute this as well. So 2 times 2n makes 4n, and 2 times 5 makes 10. Now, step 2 is combine like terms if you can. So look on the left, 6n minus 2, neither of those are like terms, so nothing can be combined. On the right side, 4n plus 10, those are not like terms either, so nothing can be combined there. Step 3 is get all your variables to one side. So I'm going to move my variables to the left. And so I'm going to move this 4n to the left side of the equal sign. So to do that, 4n is positive, so I'm going to subtract 4n from both sides. And we end up with 6n minus 4n makes 2n. Drop down the minus 2 equals, and then drop down your 10. Step 4 is to move the constants to the other side. So now that I have all the variables on the left, I need to move this -2 to the right. So to do that, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I'm running out of room here, so I'm going to kind of pull it up here. So what happens is 2n will drop down, equals, and then 10 plus 2 makes 12. And then the final step is to divide by the number in front of n because I need to get the 2 and the n split apart away from each other. So 2 over 2 makes 1, and so we get n equals 12 divided by 2 makes 6. So the solution to this equation is n equals 6. So you guys are going to try number 2 by yourself, so I'm going to move on to the next one that we're going to cover together, which is number 3. So number 3 is the next one. So what value of x makes the equation true? Again, a fancy way to say solve. So step 1 is to distribute. Now, we always distribute what is directly next to the parentheses. This 7 is too far away from the parentheses. That is not what's being distributed. What's being distributed is actually a -1. There's always a 1 in the front. It's just nobody writes it because 1 times anything is still itself. And so there's no point in writing the 1 unless we need it. So the 7 simply drops to the next step. And then you distribute -1. So -1 times 4x makes -4x. -1 times 12 makes -12. And then the 23 drops down to the next step. Now, step 2 says to combine like terms together. So on the left, I see that 7 and -12 are both like terms. So 7 plus -12 makes -5. And then everything else will drop because there are no more like terms on the left or the right. Step 3 is to move your variables to one side of the equation. But if I look, all of my variables are already gathered over here. There are no variables on this side of the equation. So step 3 is done for us. Step 4 is to get all of your constants on the other side. So since my x is here, what I need to move is actually -5. So to move -5 to the other side, I have to add 5 to both sides of the equation. And we end up with, and again, I'm going to pull it up here because I ran out of room, the -4x just drops down, equals, and then 23 plus 5 makes 28. And the final step is to divide by the coefficient to get x completely isolated. So divide by the -4, and we get x equals -7. So this is the solution to this equation. And again, you're going to try number 4 on your own. Now let's do some inequalities. So we've done some equations. Let's solve some inequalities. So we're going to do number 5 together. This is the next one we're going to do together. And so solve the inequality. Again, nothing changes when you solve equations versus inequalities. So we're still going to distribute first. So 2 times 4x makes 8x, and 2 times negative 3 makes negative 6. Drop down your less than or equal to, and then there is nothing to distribute on this side, so we can just go ahead and drop everything down. Step 2 is to combine like terms, but I see that there are no like terms here, and these are not like terms either, so we can skip step 2. Step 3 is to get all your variables to one side. So I'm going to move this 5x over to the other side. So this is a positive 5x. So to move it, I'm going to subtract it from both sides of the inequality. So 8x minus 5x makes 3x. Drop down the minus 6. Drop down your symbol and drop down negative 27. Step 4, get the constants on the other side. So since this is where my x is, I need to take this negative 6 and move it over. So to move a negative 6 over, we do the opposite, which means we're going to add 6 to both sides. And we get 3x dropping down, less than or equal to, and then negative 27 plus 6 makes negative 21. And then the last step to get x completely alone is we're going to divide out the coefficient of 3. Now, inequalities are weird with this last step. We need to make sure, should I keep the symbol the same direction or should I flip him? Well, since we divided by a positive, we're not going to do anything. Since we divided by a positive number, keep the symbol the same. Don't do anything with it. It's only when you divide by a negative do you flip the symbol over. Now, the result of negative 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7, but that's not really what decides the flip of the symbol or not. Since I divided by a positive, the symbol stays the same. Now, the next one we're going to do together is actually number 6. We're going to do number 6 together, and then you guys are in charge of 7 and 8. And so for number 6, again, determine the solution set for the inequality. So that, again, that just means solve it. So kind of like example 2, this 2 is too far away from the parentheses to be the one that is distributed. What you're really distributing is the minus 1 in the front. So the 2 will drop down to the next step, and then we're going to distribute out negative 1. So negative 1 times 2x makes negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4. And then drop down the greater than and drop down the negative 4. Step 2 is to combine like terms. So in this case, on the left-hand side, I do have a few like terms. I've got 2 plus 4, which I can add together to make 6. And then negative 2x does not have a like term, and then negative 4 on the other side also does not have a like term. Now, step 3 is to get all your variables to one side. Well, there are no variables over here, and so all of my x's are already gathered on the left. So step 3 has been done for us. Step 4 is to get your constants to the other side. So since my x's are here, I need to take this 6 and move the 6 to the other side. So this is a positive 6. So to move it over, I need to do the opposite, which is subtract. And so we get negative 2x greater than a negative 10. And then the final step is to get x completely alone, which means we need to divide out the coefficient in the front. And again, make sure. So I get an x on the left, and I need to decide whether or not I keep the symbol the same direction or flip it over. Well, because I am dividing by a negative number, that's when you flip the symbol. So because you divided by a negative number, that symbol in the middle will actually flip, and now it's a less than. And then negative 10 divided out by negative 2 is a positive 5. So anytime you divide by a negative number, be sure to flip the inequality symbol in the middle. So you guys are in charge of number 7 and 8.